Yo, what's up? After playing and greatly enjoying the new Japanese firebomber plane for almost 1 week now, I can definitely declare this squad that you get for free in the current event is not only better than anything you can unlock in the Japanese tech tree, it's even better than anything you can buy as a premium squad. You wanna know why it's so amazing? Let's take a deep look. First of all, this is a fighter plane which is stronger regarding its ground damage potential than most other Japanese attacker planes. So you're not taking any disadvantages when you pick a fighter over an attacker. And if you really love flying, you can just take any other Japanese attacker plane and this fighter plane. And no matter which plane slot is currently open, since most of the time one is already taken, you just pick one of your planes and you can dish out hellish damage on the ground. Second reason, this is a Zero plane, the worldwide famous and especially feared during World War II series of Japanese planes that features some ridiculously great maneuverability. You can outmaneuver all the American planes, and especially if you're a really good pilot, there's nothing you need to fear. You can always outplay the American planes, and unlike other Japanese planes, this one actually has immense offensive power in dogfights because you have 20mm cannons. These 20mm cannons shred everything. They're so strong you can even shred the last unlocked American tank, the M8 Scott. So yeah, 20mm cannons, absolutely insane. And once you run out of your ammunition for those cannons, which with 200 bullets is very plenty and generous, you still have your machine gun. And this is more than enough to especially disrespect all the seagulls in the air. The most special feature of this plane is obviously the big drop tank in the center underneath it, which was introduced into enlisted with this series of planes. The history and technology of the drop tanks is absolutely worth taking a look at. Popularized in the 1930s, they started as some very primitive tanks that were just connected to planes to get additional fuel, but after a while and a bunch of experience collected around the world, engineers in many nations started getting very creative and invented the following. The fuel injection system came in two versions, automatic and switch. The automatic, as the name implies, worked by you fly around, you use up your fuel, and the plane automatically takes first the fuel from the drop tank and only afterwards its actual own main fuel storage. The switch version was introduced a bit later and allowed the pilot to choose from which of the two tanks, main or additional drop tank, he wanted to take the fuel. Now this gave the pilot some very strong strategical opportunities. For example, if a pilot expected he wants the drop tank to drop it on some targets, he obviously doesn't want to use up its fuel, because if there isn't much left there, obviously the burning or even explosive effect won't be as strong. So this is something that really helped thanks to the switch technology, which isn't that easily implemented, by the way, especially not in the 1940s, to be very flexible and give pilots, especially pilots who used reconnaissance planes, who didn't have much offensive power, if any at all, to still be able to attack ground targets once they spot something important to blow up. Important to note here is that simply dropping a tank with lots of fuel won't create any explosions, nor will it in most cases even create a little bit of fire. What it will create is just a tank that drops on the ground, shatters, and spreads around your fuel on the ground. Now, in order to actually make use of this, pilots had two different mechanisms. The first one, very famously used by P-47 pilots in Normandy, was dropping their tanks, also implementing the switch mechanism so they don't use up the fuel from the drop tank, but only their main tanks. And then after they dropped it, they made a big turn, and on the return run, they strafed the ground that was now drenched in fuel with their automatic cannons, which were specifically equipped to fire explosive or even some burn cannon bullets, and these ignited the fuel area on the ground. And only after strafing with these automatic cannons, you could ensure that the ground actually starts burning. But it didn't even work always, so don't overestimate the properties of fuel that when you shoot at it. Unlike in Hollywood movies, if you shoot at a car, in its fuel tank, it won't explode. It won't even start burning. In order to ignite it, you actually need some specific fire ammunition, which is forbidden in most parts of the world. And even extremely hard and rare to get, even if you wanted to do some bad things. So these types of things don't explode like in movies. And pilots obviously knew it from experience. So in order to actually use them like a real bomb, they had to go out of their way to actually shoot at it and ignite it. The other way, which came a bit later, was modified fuel. And this worked the way that not only did you put in your fuel in the tank, but you also added some chemicals that gave the fuel some explosive properties or some higher ignition properties. And then, especially if you add in a little ignition mechanism on the tank, once you drop it, it actually can blow up and ignite instantly. This came a bit later, and the Japanese absolutely like this technology, and they used it. And this is actually what we see in the game. We see the very late, very advanced version of this whole drop tank strategy. And this is how you get the maximum firepower out of your new shiny plane. Always use the cannons and bombs together, because the cannons are half of your firepower. Reason for that is, 2 60-kilogram bombs are literally the weakest bombs you get as a Japanese, and the fire tank isn't that strong either. It looks impressive, but keep in mind, soldiers have 1.5 seconds to run away out of the fire zone before they actually catch fire. So yes, it's not that effective. Though, if you hit a GMC or any type of the many American open-top tanks, well, the crew is gonna start burning 100%. So yeah, always do your primary, let's go back, always do your primary attack. Try to find a tank or a group of infantry. Hit them with your bombs and fuel tanks. I recommend dropping both of them because usually it's an advantage to be able to drop tanks on 2 separate points of time. But here, both of the bombs are so weak that you want to combine the firepower. And on your return strafing run, you pick off any random infantry that you can see, preferably groups of enemies so you can just spray into them with your cannons. Or most of the time you see still a tank running around somewhere and you just blow him up. And when it comes to dogfights, this plane is even much better than a direct bombing because this plane can take lots of damage, is ridiculously maneuverable, and can shred all the enemy planes with its cannons and additional machine guns. And here, look at the beginning. We are approaching the area. We want to target the enemy soldiers on the ground, but this GMC is shooting at us. It almost shred us. Any other Japanese plane would be dead now, but not this one, because it's actually very tanky, especially for those weak Japanese planes. And here we're engaging an enemy plane in a dogfight. He's shooting us again. We start burning. He's shred us with his heavy machine guns. But we're still alive, and we can still fly, and we can still maneuver around, and we still won the dogfight. So this is absolutely insane. This plane is offering you everything you could ever wish for in a fighter plane. The best thing even is that in real life, those huge tanks slow down your planes significantly. Because not only did they make the aerodynamics worse, but also they were heavy, they slowed your plane down, they made it harder to maneuver, especially during dogfights, and they made you easier to detect by radar systems, because obviously your radar fingerprint got larger. None of this applies inside the game, and not due to lack of mechanics, but simply because these Zeros are so agile, so easily maneuverable, so precise, and so much faster than all of those slow-ass other Japanese planes that I can just absolutely recommend using this one. So let me know what you think, and make sure you like and subscribe, and until next time, goodbye.